So here we are with the first chapter of the West, Encounters and Transformations. And what I want these lectures to be, they are a complement to the reading. And I really want to make sure that you're realizing the importance of doing both. Because what I'm going to do is kind of maybe just bring up things that aren't necessarily always in the book. So the lectures will be unique to it, but I'll be following, along with what's being discussed in the book. And hopefully these things will complement each other. And I'm going to keep reminding all my students to always contact me if you want to elaborate on certain points that I pass over. This is a survey course, and we cover a lot. I mean, just look at this here. The beginnings of civilization, 10,000 to 1050 BCE. Kind of almost ridiculous. So we're not getting something very thorough out of this, but we're trying to help paint a picture or a concept of how we got to where we're at now. Okay, and I just want you to keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to be talking about the beginnings of civilization, and from the time period I just mentioned. It's here on the PowerPoint, 10,000 to 1,150 BCE. And so, I'm going to be defining civilization for you, defining Western civilization, and then talking about Mesopotamia and Egypt, and kind of going into why would we do that? Well, first of all, the word civilization is contentious in the sense that it's used often in conversation. When you say someone is civilized or you say they're uncivilized, you're making a kind of moral judgment, right? That you are putting a value judgment on it, should I say. Being civilized is a compliment, and being uncivilized is meaning that you're, speaking low of someone. And so we talk about Western civilization, or whether or not a group is a part of a civilization. There starts to be this kind of interpretation of cultural chauvinism, meaning that we're using this term to make, a judgment. And that's not how we'll be looking at this word in the class. We're talking about a word to define a certain way that a society is organized as a way, as compared to other alternative forms of organizing groups. So, for example, Native American peoples, indigenous peoples, first world peoples of the United States in North America had they didn't have like a nation state with writing. Okay, so that's a different type of way of living than, let's say, living in North Korea right now under a very strong state where the state is ever present in your life, and that the representatives of the state are everywhere. And so it's different. Okay, so you'll notice in your book that it says that the archaeologists define civilization as an urban culture with differentiated levels of wealth, occupation, and power. And you have cities, warfare, writing, social hierarchies, and advanced arts and crafts. That's just like a loose definition. So what we're really talking about, okay, is a society that has a structure to it. That's on a large scale, an urban center, meaning not nomadic, not traveling around in pockets, claiming certain territory and defining it, having a home settled down, okay? And social hierarchies, officially having a chain of command within a society, right? And then writing is important, and I want to mention that the writing part is crucial. And the writing is what we work with as historians mainly, and it's also complicates things, because there's no such thing as prehistory actuality, right? I mean, as long as something's happening, it's history. But unless it's written down, we don't have any way of preserving it unless it's passed on by word of mouth, orally, as we say, like over a period of time. And then at the same time, do we really have the full picture just because something is written down? But that's the best thing we have to work with. And the further back we go, and when we're talking about the beginnings of civilization, 10,000 BCE, I think it's fair to say we're going to know very little about that time period, no matter what we come up with through archaeology. And so this chapter in particular, we're not going to be like heavily focused on. I'm going to go over parts of the book, but I will go more into more in-depth discussions when we get into time periods and where we have more material which we could work with and make some concrete observations. Again, we're also talking about defining Western civilization. I've pointed out, I think in my intro video, that Morocco in Arabic is called Al-Maghrib, the West. And in terms of the Middle East and the world in which Islam came out of, it was the western part. But we don't think, as members of the United States of America, of Morocco being Western. So geography is always depending on which part of the map you're standing on, right? But ultimately, what we're talking about is what develops in Europe over time and becomes, by extension, a part of the United States and the system of organizing society we call Western civilization. I will answer that progressively, make that more clear. So then why are we starting in Mesopotamia and Egypt? Why are we going there? Why are we going to go to Greece and Rome? Well, because first we're starting with the concept of civilization based on what I just defined. And Europe isn't where that starts. But it's going to be the European tradition that eventually kind of defines what is considered Western civilization. But the point is, we recognize that you don't get the term Western civilization or civilization without going to places that we don't consider Western now. Okay, and again, we'll clarify that and talk about that more. So I'll end right here just to start with this on this one lecture, just to kind of get us working into these topics. I'm going to go very briefly over Mesopotamia and Egypt. Those are big topics, histories that are immense, and yet we're just going over them, like we're just dropping in the names, like, hey, here's what happened here, boom, moving right along, okay? But again, if something is missed that you find interesting and you want to have a question about it, then let me know. Okay, so I'll end right there.